finally back. It's been a while for a reason. Went to Drift Nirvana like we were supposed to. Started going. Felt awesome. You could tell that it wasn't really quite where it was supposed to be, but I could feel the car pulling again. So that was great. I was getting more power. But then immediately back to normal. Started limping out. Wouldn't spin the tires. It's just at this point completely fed up with it. It's what was that, like the 4th or 5th event on it? I pretty much was confused on what was going on. We left early again. Still haven't been in a full event. My friend from Evolution Motorsport Engineering, come on down. We'll look at it. We've got a Mustang dyno. We're a Corvette shop. You got an LS. We'll figure this out. Great. So, let's see. I wish I recorded all this, but it turned out to be a big situation. First thing we did was they hooked up the computer, and they noticed that intake air temp was running about 150 degrees, and once we warmed it up and drove it a couple of times, it was at 160. Computer wouldn't go any higher, and you could put your hand on the intake, and it would start burning your hand. So like, oof. Went out, got another vibrant pipe, another clamp. Put the original pipe down there. Here, let me give you some light. So we didn't have to change the sensor location, so it's right. So that's the same pipe that used to be over here, but it's now over there. So the sensor's out of the way and not doing anything. This was just pretty much an extension, and now the intake sits over there. We had to cut a small hole. I'll probably fix the angle. I don't know if you're sideways or not. I'll have to cut it a little bit more and make a mount, but that's working great. So we got that situated. Like, sweet, fix the problem. Threw it on the dyno. We'll He was like, "What was it? Your fuel pressure?" I was like, "There's no way. It looked good. It was holding at 58 at idle." Well, as much as it pisses me off, put the hood up and we floored it on the dyno so we could watch the fuel pressure. As soon as you floor it, this thing drops from 58, 60 to 42 and sometimes 38. And the dyno was reading that we were making 60 horsepower and 120 at the absolute most, and that was in the earlier RPMs. Once we got up to like 4,000, nothing. I think it was about 50 at the most. Torque was still around 200, but it's not where it's supposed to be. It's a 5.3 pretty much, and so it's like still technically an LS. I know it's a truck motor. It's not as powerful as most of them, but it's still supposed to make way more than that. Pulled it off. Thought it was the fuel pressure regulator. Replaced the fuel pressure regulator with this hyperfuel. Went on. Tried to do it again. It was holding pressure at idle perfectly fine. Put it back on the dyno. Yeah, pretty much a little bit better, but once you floor it, gone again. It's not once it's under load, nothing. No fucking clue why. Like, it's a completely entirely hyperfuel system. It's hyperfuel fuel pressure regulator, 10 micron filter, and a hyperfuel fuel pump. We never figured it out. After the third time putting on the engine dyno, I removed anything to do with this fuel pressure regulator. Put an old Corvette regulator. It's on there. This is the old one. And went back to my old return list from, I think, like the first. I don't even think I did a video on that fuel system. That's how old it is. But it turns out to work great. We made full power. Here it is. It's actually I that's the worst part. I didn't record anything when I started making full power, because after the third time of putting on the dyno and re-recording the camera, you kind of give up. It's fucking ridiculous. And so pretty much switched the lines around, made it returnless. The line was way too long, so we did this just so we didn't have to risk messing up the hose. So I do have to fix that situation now. But we're no longer on a full return setup. Wasted a bunch of money on that fuel system. It is making me mad, but I mean, in the future, if I go supercharger or something like that, I can start using that stuff again. But not that regulator, because I'm returning it. I want to get my money back because I can, and because for all we know, that regulator could be bad too. I don't know if I had terrible luck and bought 2 bad regulators, but I'm not risking it, so I'll buy another when that time comes. Wish I could return everything else, but way too old. Finally making power. It's not as much as you would think. It's because it is a Mustang dyno. It's 241 to the wheels, 261 foot-pounds of torque. I kind of wanted more, but at the same time, this thing, it is bone stock besides LS6 intake and this air intake. Everything else, oh yeah, and we got inch and 7.5 headers, runners. So any performance gains that I got from a 5.3 on a Mustang dyno, I mean, it came from the intake and the header. So maybe 10 horsepower, if that. Like, I don't know how much I gained because I didn't know how much I made before. I mean, well, I knew how much I made before, but how much the engine would properly make before. But in the end, everything's finally done and over with. Super excited about that, and we can finally do a full event. Fingers crossed on that, but I think this is finally reliable enough. It's been forever. I've been being lazy. I mean, you can tell, still haven't shaved. My hair's all messed up. Just being a lazy person at this point. Power now, so I can focus on learning and not worrying about if the car's messed up or not. Whew, thank you. Good day.